Hi, everyone, and welcome to a brand new season of Say Again with me, Amrita Tripathi. Today, I'm in conversation with someone I last interviewed. Ajay, I don't know if you remember this or not, more than 20 years
I
ago.
remember that. I still have that clip.
I have it somewhere. I have to find it for the
Yeah.
production of this episode. So Ajay Jain is an author, a photographer, traveler, an entrepreneur, and the founder of Kunzum. And I'm very excited to have you in conversation today, Ajay, to double click on some of your different identities. But first, a huge congrats on your new book that's coming out this month, Charlie's Boys.
Thank you so
Congratulations.
much. Thank you so much.
So I want to ask you first things first, though.
Yeah.
Why a bookstore in 2025? It seems so counterintuitive. I know you've been, building the community of readers. You've been very passionate about books and the importance of reading. But I'm sure you faced your share of skeptics. So tell us a little bit about why a bookstore in this day and age.
Well, before I let the skeptics have a say, I started building the bookstore. So it was too late to do anything about it. And the reason why I set up a bookstore and the kind of bookstore that Kunzum is in a cultural space, an experiential space, simply for one reason, because somebody had to. See, the thing is, in this whole age of materialism, where our lives are dictated by oligarchs, so much technology and everything, like what is really core to us, like books, art, literature, culture, nature, like these are things if human beings are not connected to, right? We will lose that empathy, we will lose a sense of reason, we will lose anything that constitutes a thing called love, right? And if we don't have that, then what are we really existing for, right? So I just thought, okay, let's set up these bookstores because see, we need these oases in society. And yeah, that's really the
I love
of
it.
course, yeah, because of course I'm trying to build a business around it.
Yeah.
But the fact is that everything can't be about economics.
So this is interesting because, of course, I'm a reader first and an author, as you know. So
Yeah,
it's very,
yeah.
very important for people like me that you're successful.
Yeah.
But I didn't know until last year when I was doing research for something that fiction, for example. We're told that fiction is one of the best ways to learn empathy. It's one of the most important. Obviously, it makes sense when you think about it. But there's studies that
Yeah.
have been done that the best way for humans to learn empathy is through storytelling, through fiction.
Yeah.
When you look at how the community around Kunzum has gone, and of course it has been successful because you have, I see that there are constantly events, there are always organically sort of community-led events going on at Kunzum. Can you talk us through some of those pillars? Because I know, at the start you were saying as well that you wanted to make sure that the curation of the books was there, that there is a community around it. And as you said, experiences around reading are something that, you have been doubling down on, even as it seems now that people need to be brought back to this. This was very, I guess, organic when we were young. But reading now is something you kind of have to sometimes bring people back to and share that it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
Can you take us through a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, since you mentioned growing up, we were actually told, put these books away. You're reading too many books, right? And now it's actually the opposite, that why didn't you pick up a book, right? The problem is that not enough parents are even saying or pick up a book either to their children or to themselves. Okay, it's all right if somebody's using technology, parents couldn't be fussed about it. But coming to Kunzum, I think we built it on the, like you already mentioned them, right? We built them on certain pillars, which we call the multiple C's. One is the whole curation, right? The kind of books we have and the number of books we have, that was important. There is this whole culture that we want to build, culture where people come together through events, through conversations, that face-to-face connect. That is extremely important. It automatically forms the other C, which is community, right? So we have these communities coming together.
Kunzum is something I think folks in Delhi and the sort of national capital region are aware of. Did you have plans for expansion outside of Delhi? And I know you have said in the past also that you think it's really important to have more independent, locally rooted bookstores.
So initially, when I started when I decided to pivot to Kunzum being a bookstore towards the fag end of the pandemic, I thought, okay, let's set up 100 bookstores, let's have a national chain, stuff like that. And there was also a little personal logic. I said, okay, if there are 100 stores around the country and each store sells X number of books that I have written, right? So every day I will sell 100x books, and imagine I'll be like a best-selling author just selling books through my own stores. But once I set up the stores, I realized a few things. One, running a bookstore requires people who know the technicalities of books, right? There are a lot of if you take somebody on to sell clothes or food or cars or anything else. People generally know what they are. The problem with books is you need to have a knowledge about the different books that have been written, authors, titles. You need to understand databases. If a customer walks in, you need to at the top of your head, you need to have instant knowledge. Now, getting that kind of manpower is not easy, right? More importantly, I realize that if you're trying to get a cultural space, right, it will not rest well with the private equity guys. Because if I expand, I will need to get funding. And if I need to get funding, right, and they realize that, hey, if you're trying to focus more on culture and stuff like that, when we're not getting the kind of returns on a per square foot of premium retail space that an equivalent store in some other category will get, they'll be after me. Right. And I don't want to be the guy who starts selling teddy bears and pizzas and all kinds of toys and clothes inside a bookstore. Then I will not be really a bookstore. So I needed to retain that purity. So I said, okay, let's do one thing. Let's stay boutique. And eventually we went even although we opened 5 stores on day one, we actually kind of did some reorganization earlier this year. And so our single store in Greater Kailash 2 is what we really tell people is our primary store. We have 2 smaller ones also in Delhi, but we direct everyone there because that's built on 4 floors. It's 10,000 square feet. We have an exclusive Penguin store there. We have an exclusive HarperCollins store there. We have an exclusive theater over there. Right. So, and there are many brands across the world, not just in the space of books, but so many other categories who are single store destinations and for generations. I said, so let Kunzum stay that. But if anyone comes to me and says, I need to understand how to set up a bookstore, I'm happy to share all my learnings and knowledge and my contacts. I have no problem because I feel that every nook and corner of this country should have a bookstore.
Love that. I love that. I will, maybe amplify your open call to anyone else. It'll be great to see more such, more such spaces. I was really, really delighted to launch my latest novel at your store in the theater with Context in Westland. So that was amazing. And of course, I've been to many conversations and panel discussions that have been hosted at Kunzum. So it's really interesting to me that it has such character, it has such a connection to community. And I'm going to, of course, in the course of this conversation, rewind to how you started. And that was another epic and iconic spot you had in Horsecars Village. But just on the note of community, we're hearing, and I'm someone who's worked in tech. I use AI tools. I don't want to be like a Luddite, but I do think that we have to be really careful when it comes to sort of the creative space and how we're using some of these tools. I do want to ask you, when you talk about community, that seems to be something a lot of folks, including sort of tech oligarchs that we discussed, I'm sure some of the private equity guys as well, are talking about the importance of communities now. I have a feeling you are using community differently. Tell us a little bit about why is that important? And, nowadays we're seeing most of us are, of course, obsessed with our screens. We're not connecting. One-on-one with other people. We're not interacting as much. There have been studies talking about an increase in loneliness as a result in our big cities. So, with that juxtaposition, where does a bookstore play a role and how do you see community growing around that?
So while it's easier to say we are building a community, but one of the learnings I had when I was running the earlier Kunzum Travel Cafe, that let's not build a community, but let's build a community of communities, right? The idea is that bring in people who already own communities, right? And let them bring in the people. And so what happens is then we have that little network effect, right? Because see, if you're building a community, that means the whole database is ours, right? And to create that, to keep them engaged, to keep them kind of faithful, to keep them motivated, and it shouldn't be just a statistic. See, what happens with a lot of communities is, I've got like 2 million followers on my Instagram, but the meaningful engagement, we don't know. Right? But when we have a community of communities, what happens is if somebody's running like a dance group, somebody's running a theater group, somebody's running a book club, right? They kind of become stakeholders in what Kunzum is all about, right? And they bring in people we don't know exist, right? And then it kind of actually leaves us free because then what happens is we provide the space and the infrastructure, but they bring in all the software and the programming. And that is what we are trying to really build at Kunzum. So that, it's like kind of the tech people would call it B2B2C.
See, I knew you knew the jargon. I knew it. We'll come to that in this conversation. But
Yeah.
Ajay, having been an engineer, an MBA, and someone who pivoted to journalism as well,
Yeah.
there's a lot to talk about. But let's talk about your book. And it's really interesting. You said at one point that you were hoping that you'd use your bookstores to sell your own books. We'll talk about the Kunzum Travel Cafe in Horse Village, which was such an iconic part of, I think, the Delhi cultural landscape as well. You had a pay-as-you-go model. I knew it was for travelers, but almost everyone, I think, would pop in and see that
Yeah.
amazing space, and it had your photographs and your art as well. So we'll talk about that as well. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the pandemic and pivoting, because I feel like a lot of people who try things and then realize that they're not working, it's a very difficult process. So I want to ask you a little bit about how you decided to pivot, why you decided to pivot. But let's talk about Charlie's Boys first. So hopefully this episode comes out as your book is launching. So congrats on that again. Why did you
Thank you
want
so
to
much.
write this? Why did you want to write this book this year? I saw a post you had mentioned, and how important has your school been to you? Because it sounds like it's quite a documentation.
Well, I happened to go to a school called St. Columba School. It was an era where as far as the hierarchy of schools go, I think St. Columba School could be called the equivalent of a Harvard of India, right? Without its elitism, because it was kind of a school for everyone. They took in people from all walks of life with a strong focus on those who came from more modest backgrounds. Right, like my father was in government service, and the monthly fees was all of 75 rupees, and that's the best that my father could have afforded at that time. But I think the values, whatever I went through school, right? When I was at school, it was a very frustrating experience, like being in a building, being in a complex of 3,250 boys, right? We wanted girls, right? And I said, where are we stuck? Right. In fact, I even in class 11, I actually went to Delhi Public School. I said, okay, forget it. I'm done with this school, and I came back in 3 days. But I think I've been wanting to write something like a book set in my school. I tried my hand at fiction. I tried my hand at little diary style thing, and I've been trying to write it since 2010. But then what happened was last year, I happened to go to school twice in close succession. One was for the annual general meeting of our alumni association. And the second was we had an iconic headmaster, brother Eric D'Souza. So he passed away last year, and there was a memorial service for him in the school. And on both occasions, when I went to school, it was like I had to fight back tears just entering the building. And the first thought that came to my mind that we all leave school, but the school never leaves you. And I said, now's the moment I have to write now, because now I'm in that emotional state. And then I kind of formulated a certain structure and style and started writing it. And so the way I've written it is partially anecdotal, where I write anecdotes as if they're like in a diary style happening then, right? But it's also reflective, because I come to the present self where I reflect. So I move back and forth in time, right? Then it's kind of reflective on the education values, the way we are, like kind of our place in this world, the kind of teachers we had, right? The kind of teaching that was imparted to us, right? The best of minds. It's like when I think back, like those teachers, they were the most brilliant of minds. They could have done anything, but they chose to be teachers in institutions like St. Columba School.
Yeah.
And I realized that they gave their today for our tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. So, there has, since all this has to be recorded somewhere, right? But recorded in a way which is not like a preaching lesson or something. So let's make it like a little fun also.
Yeah.
So the book is currently being printed in Faridabad. I've been told by the publishers, HarperCollins, it should be out in a few days. I should see the print copies.
That's exciting.
Links on Amazon are all up. And if you want to see the cover, I can show you the cover.
Yeah, please show us the cover. And we will link in the show notes. There you go, Charlie's Boys.
Yeah.
Ajay Jain. So these are what? These are actual photos? The one on the...
So this is like a mock-up of the character certificate we used to get.
Oh, yes.
Right, at the school leaving. Yeah. And this is it's cropped, but it's a class 11 group photo of my class. So I want the readers to find me in this photo. And and the teacher here is one of the Irish brothers. I just learned when I was researching for the book that he's 100 plus, still living in Ireland, and as active and energetic as he used to be when he was our teacher.
That's incredible. I mean, actually, it's going to be amazing for your teachers to also, hear about this book and
Yeah.
hopefully
So
you'll
unfortunately, like with the passage of time, like
some of them.
not too many are left.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they're still kind of there
There are
in
a
our
few.
hearts, in our minds.
So is Shah Rukh Khan was from St. Columbus? Is that one of the claims to
Yeah,
fame?
he was my senior by 3 years.
Do you have any anecdotes about Shah Rukh that you can share?
Oh, of course, of course. That's mandatory.
It has to be there, right? In the book, anything
Yeah.
off the cuff you can share right now?
Oh well, uh, there actually there were many incidents, and I think I'll leave it for the readers to
The
discover
readers?
those anecdotes. Yeah, but
Okay.
there was a time when our girls, in quotes, right, beat his girl Gauri in theater when he was directing Gauri, right?
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
yeah, so
Okay.
that's just one of the anecdotes. But I'm telling everyone who's a friend of Shah Rukh Khan that he should not use this book to become famous.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. But that should be a fun book and I think for a lot of your alumni, but also as you said, as a document of
Yeah.
the impact that teachers in your school have had. So when you look at books, you have actually been writing for a long time. You start, and you also were one of the OG bloggers. Do you want to take us through? We'll now rewind a few years, more than a few years, and I'm going to come to that first interview I've done with you, which is you had set up possibly India's first youth-led newspaper.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
So maybe we start with that actually. So that was. I was at Indian Express. I remember doing this profile of you. You had come back from Cardiff by then. So in your own trajectory, there's St. Columbus, there's school. You trained to be an engineer. You did an MBA. You had a corporate career, and then you said at the grand old age of 31, you decided you want to change things
Yeah.
around, and you went to study journalism.
So, yeah,
Right?
so after engineering and MBA, 5 years was in IT, another 5 years was in sports management, and
Wow.
31 I went back to school, and I then joined the Express Group. So I was working for the Financial Express,
Yes.
and that was probably the time when you might have been working at the Indian Express.
Yes, I think there was a little bit of overlap. Did
Yeah.
you leave FE to set up the youth newspaper, the
Yeah,
campus
so
newspaper?
I joined FE. I worked there for about a year and a half, right? And then I quit to join the Business Standard. But I quit FE, but I did not join Business Standard. And I set up this newspaper called the Campus Paper. It was a print newspaper. We used to, we experiment with it. We tried different things. We got students to write our articles. We trained them we mentored them to be writing like real journalists. We rejected articles that did not make the cut. And surprisingly and happily, there were some of those student journalists who actually went on to make careers in writing and journalism, right? So you've got one of the famous journalists is Neha Dikshit. So she was in Miranda House, right?
Yeah.
I think the idea of becoming a journalist probably came to her because she got an opportunity to work for the campus paper, right? We got Neha Sinha who works at the WWF. She's written a book herself,
Yeah.
right? So and they all remember the experience they had with me.
That's
right?
fascinating. Neha
And
Dikshit, Neha
and then
Sinha.
of course the newspaper did not do well financially, so it had to be packed up. But around the same time, I started blogging. The social media was just coming up. I started posting my content on social media. The word influencer, as we know today, did not exist. But yeah, I was one of the earliest professional influencers. And then around 2007, I dropped everything and took to almost full-time travel writing and photography to write travel books. Then along the way, I wrote some other books also, non-travel, from my experiences and from my knowledge. And then I also set up the Kunzum Travel Cafe more to serve as a gallery for my photography and my books, right? But the place took a life of its own. And then the same Kunzum Travel Cafe, I pivoted into Kunzum Books during the pandemic.
So that is quite a trajectory, and it's so interesting because you've actually it's like there's breadth and depth also in different different career streams, as it were. So if we talk about the Kunzum Travel Cafe, it had a very, very popular following. I think very high footfalls. Horsecast Village at that time, of course, in Delhi
Yeah.
was very, very popular as well. What happened when the pandemic hit? Obviously, cities shut down. There was a lockdown. Travel stopped. In terms of when you were coming out of the pandemic, is that when you decided you had to pivot away from the travel cafe, or how did that change happen?
Well, the thing is, even leading up to the pandemic, I was beginning to have a few doubts about what I want to do with the Kunzum Travel Cafe, because the whole character of Horsecast Village changed, unfortunately. When we moved in around 2009, 2010, it was more of a mom and pop community, right? We had like we had bookstores like Yodakin run by Arpita. We had Gunpowder, a very popular restaurant at the time. We had Elma's, and we had like all kind of little boutiques and all. But what happened was suddenly like some of these pubs, these restaurants, these big brands suddenly discovered the place, and they came in and kind of just started offering double, treble, quadruple rents to the landlords, like and there was no choice but for the incumbents to move out. Right, we didn't move out because we owned the place. Otherwise, we would have also been thrown out. And then the whole character changed. It became more of a watering hole. There were like some gory stories that we would hear that, once it got dark, there were kind of all kind of nefarious activities happening. I never saw it firsthand, so I'm just saying this is what I heard. So what happened was the kind of audience we were attracting earlier, that started falling. Right? The popularity didn't kind of diminish, but a lot of people said, oh, I don't want to be seen in Oscars Village. Right? So, and then the pandemic hit. So we stayed shut for almost 2 years. And then it gave me time to think. And I said, okay, we already know how to create a kind of a social place. Now let's retain the core of what Kunzum Travel Cafe stands for and build a bookstore around that. So that's what happened.
You make it sound very simple, but I know it's anything but. So what are some of the challenges in setting up? And, coming back to, we'll come full circle to what you're doing today and hopefully, in the near future as well. If we look at, I know you have had lots of advice, which we'll probably wind down with some tips and advice for authors, because you've been telling people don't give away your books for free and all kinds of little tidbits of advice I've seen. But, for folks who are sort of entrepreneurial, there are a lot of people doing startups, a lot of people looking to build, especially today in India. What is some of the advice you have, and how did you have a good set of advisors? Were you confident from the get-go because you'd already built this community, as you said? You also obviously are very passionate about writing and reading and books, which of course helps. But did you get any good advice? Did you have any mentors, advisors, and what would you share with younger entrepreneurs today?
Yeah, see, so all the mentors said, don't set up a bookstore. So that's the only advice I was getting.
That's hilarious, of course.
Yeah, but I still persisted. And honestly, I started doing the fit outs of the spaces I picked up, even without knowing how I'm going to source the books. Right? Then along the way, somebody came and gave me advice on, let's use this software, and this is how these are the contacts of the distributors and the publishers. But then we realized that software is not very good. Then we changed the software. Then we got somebody else. And actually, what happened was that we just kept learning. The first set of staff that we took on, they were from the retail business, right? So they started giving me advice. So my mentors were actually like people who were just joining the team along the way, whether they were the vendors, they were the publishers, they were the team members. So they just kept teaching me, and we just kept building. And yeah, and it just happened.
That's very cool. I mean, I know there are many, many, many chapters in the middle, but advice for younger entrepreneurs. So you basically decided to disregard the people who, out of, I guess, their concern for you, were saying, concern for your welfare, were like, do not open a bookstore, it won't work. So is that actually, that's probably a life lesson as well, right? Like if you really believe in it, you have to.
So a lot of people come to me and say, oh, like, no matter what I was doing in life, whether I was running a newspaper, whether I was doing my photography, my journalism, my travel writing, running the Kunzum Bookstore, stuff like that. Oh, like, oh, this is your passion, right? And some of them even I'd say, okay, this is your passion, but what do you do in real? I said, no, this is my profession.
This is your
right? So you're quite passionate about it, right? So I say, yeah, like, but passion is one thing. But the thing is, any piece of passion, whether you're pursuing it as a serious hobby or as a profession, the advice I give is you have to dive deep, because if you don't like kind of learn the nuance, you don't train yourself. If one day I wanted to be a journalist, right? I went to school to study journalism, right? I worked as the lowliest of reporters in terms of rank at the age of 32, right? I did that. Right, and that's what kind of, and most people, especially in India, don't even think of doing that at that age.
Yeah.
Right, and so I tell everyone who who tells me that, oh, I'm passionate about so and so stuff. I'm passionate about climbing the Mount Everest. Sure, great, but if you don't train and prepare yourself for 2 years, right, you won't even make it to the base. Of the Mount Everest, right? So this is how I do it. If I decide to do something, I need to kind of learn about it, and so in a way, I'm kind of whimsical.
Yeah.
right? And very often I don't, start pursuing a whim before anybody stops me, kind of pulls me back. I said, now it's too late. I'm already kind of, miles ahead, right? And, but yeah, you have to make sure that you're good at what you're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, don't do it.
And you have to put in the hard work, clearly, as you said. Like you have
No,
to prep,
it's a lot of hard work no matter what you do. And I
Yeah.
tell people, I said, look, even the most glamorous of industries, whether it's fashion or Bollywood or whatever, right? It's a huge grind at the back end,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What you're seeing is only the glamorous finished product,
Yeah.
right? But see the kind of work that goes in the background. Like there's nothing glamorous about that part.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I was when I was doing some of the research for this, I read you also, some of the advice you also give people is that you have to be clear about your finances, right? Like, I mean, you can't
No,
just chuck a job without thinking about some of the
Yeah.
practicalities.
So, see, the other thing I tell people is, one, make sure that like you maintain generally good health, mental and physical,
Yeah.
right? Never compromise on that, no matter what you're pursuing in life.
Yeah.
The second thing is, I say, make sure you keep your head above, above the water when it comes to your personal finances, right? Don't take on liabilities you cannot service, because you don't take a punt.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a little conservative. And number three, I said, look, and once you've achieved a certain level of financial success, stability, right, don't spend the rest of your life earning money that is either the money that you're not going to spend in your lifetime, or is just feeding a megalomania. Right.
Interesting. Interesting. So you have also given advice to this is on LinkedIn for those of you connected with Ajay, which I found so interesting. This thing about how a lot of authors will give away copies of their books either because people ask for them, which is
Yeah.
very annoying because we don't get that many copies free ourselves.
Yeah.
But everyone will be like, oh, give me a copy. Sometimes you do it because you think it's going to help your marketing or spread the word, etc. You had a really funny post which you were like, stop doing it. You're like, basically you
Yeah.
were saying you're diluting the value of what you've done, right? Can you take
Exactly.
us through that?
Yeah, it's like, so this is a lesson I learned when I was working in the newspaper. The newspaper used to cost 2 rupees, right? But even my employers would not give me a free copy. I had to buy my own newspaper, right? And so I don't know why people, so there's this guy standing in front of me. He owns a BMW showroom, right? And here I'm like a poor author. And he says, give me a copy of your book free. I said, sure, give me a car free.
He won't even give you a hubcap free. give me something.
He won't even give me hubcap. Yeah, he won't even give me hubcap, right?
So funny.
Right. So why do people expect? So the thing I tell authors is, look, don't give away your books for free.
Yeah.
Because unless you know that the person you're giving it to is going to read it, give you some feedback, run a review or something, at least there should be something constructive.
Yeah.
Don't just go around passing them around because to get the satisfaction, oh, more people have my books. That's not going to help your cause. Instead, focus the same money that you're spending on that free book and that time and energy in marketing your book, in training yourself, writing a better book. So do all that stuff, but don't just go around giving free books because. And actually, even as a bookseller, I actually feel very embarrassed when authors come to me and try to give me a copy of the book free because I said, look, no, I'll buy your book.
Yeah.
Right, from my own store. That's all right.
Yeah.
Right. And I try to tell them that, to some of them, I hope they're not listening, that I will not read your book.
Oh man.
So don't give it to me.
By the way, I'm frantically trying to think whether I have not given you a free book. Actually, I don't think
No,
I've done that.
I wouldn't have accepted it. I
Yeah,
think,
you wouldn't have. Yeah.
I think if what I usually do is any book launches that are happening at Kunzum, in most cases, if I'm around, I buy a copy and get it signed just
Yeah.
for my collection. I may not necessarily read all of those books, right? But sometimes I just okay, it's a nice gesture. But
Yes.
at least I don't ask the authors to give me a free copy because I think it's not fair.
It really isn't, yeah. So I hope people
Yeah.
are listening to that bit. I completely agree with what Ajay is saying, and I'm actually also okay if you buy it and don't read it. Just buy the copy, buy the damn book. But
Yeah.
final advice from you. So you have been now. It's really interesting because you actually have straddled both sides as a writer, as someone who sells books, and of course, as we were talking about this sort of community of communities. You also interact with a lot of publishers. For writers, what is one thing? And we'll probably wind down with this for the moment. But what is one piece of advice you have for writers to understand about the selling business or the selling of books business? Because I feel like sometimes there is a bit of a disconnect there. It seems to be something that not all authors are very confident when it comes to.
Okay. Pick up Philip Kotler's The 4 P's of Marketing, right? Maybe by next year, I have a half-finished manuscript on how to kind of market your books. I wrote that manuscript during the pandemic, then I've just kind of let it languish because I was doing other work. If that is ready, you can pick up that copy. But till then, pick up Philip Kotler's The 4 P's of Marketing, and no matter what, whether you're selling shampoo or a book, follow those 4 P's. And the first P is the most important P, which is the product itself, right? No matter what, see, even the most avid of readers, right, will read maybe 2 books or 3 books a month, right? That's about 20 to 30 books in a year. You come to a store like Kunzum, like there are 1 lakh books over there. Now imagine an avid reader walks in and they have to pick up over the course of a year, they're only buying from Kunzum, they're going to pick up 25 books. Why should your book be one of those 25? I know every book does not appeal to everyone, but that certain segment, the one you're writing for, what will make them pick up your book? What is so great about that book? Right? I never say any book is, I never say any book is a bad book, right? I read that somewhere, so it's not my original statement, right? Because every book has somebody who likes that book, and every book has people who don't like that book, right? But you have to, what's happening is in fact, the other thing I joke about is every aspiring author and everybody who's self-published a book or gone to an unknown publisher and got a book published just for the fun of it, if each of them just comes and buys 1 book from me a month from my store, like I will not know what to do with the profits. There's so many out there.
That's true.
Right? Yeah. Right? There are thousands of books getting published every month in India. Will you believe that? And that I'm talking only about the English language. There are in the vernaculars. There's a different, different system, right? But but I'm saying, write great books, train yourself, get mentoring, get good editors, get good advice, spend your time, right? And understand why would somebody read that book, right? After that, follow the usual marketing stuff and all. But if your product is poor, it's like no matter how fancy a restaurant you create, right? If the food is not good, people will not come there. They might try it once, but then the success of restaurants and movies and books, it all rests on word of mouth. The first people who try it and they come back and say, hey, I didn't like the book or I didn't like the food, right? There goes your business plan.
That's true. Wow. Well, I think that we have a lot of reasons to come to Kunzum. If you're going to Kunzum, please pick up Ajay's book when it comes out in November. Pick up mine. A lot of my books should be there.
We'll offer it as a bundle.
It should be a bundle. And if you're listening to or watching this podcast, we definitely think you should be reading us as well. Thank you so much, Ajay, for taking the time. Those
Thank you,
who've
Amrita.
been listening or watching, we will be linking to Ajay's books and Kunzum, the website, in the show notes. So do check them out and let us know what you think. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. It was great fun.